Class, and welcome to chapter 18. We'll be going over parts A and B. I took off part C, so this chapter will just be parts A and B for the PowerPoint. Thanks for being patient in the uploading of this. I got sick and I lost my voice a little bit, so hopefully I can get through this. So thanks for being patient with me as I upload this. So chapter 18 is all about blood vessels, and this is the final chapter before your next lecture exam. Um, some of this will be a good review from anatomy. We'll talk about blood pressure, and some of the homeostatic imbalances with that. So your blood vessels will be basically your body's delivery system of dynamic structures that begins and ends at the heart. They also will work with the lymphatic system to circulate all fluids in your body. Arteries, remember, carry blood away from the heart. They are always oxygenated except for pulmonary circulation and also for the umbilical vessels of the fetus. Capillaries are the direct contact with tissue cells. This is where all the gas exchange, nutrient exchange, and waste pickup occurs, and they directly serve the cellular needs. And veins carry blood back to the heart. They are mostly always deoxygenated except for pulmonary circulation and the umbilical vessels of the fetus. So here's a relationship between the blood vessels to each other and to the lymphatic vessels with a heart in the middle. The lymphatic vessels serve as the body's catch-all system for extra interstitial fluid, and your lymphatic vessels will eventually take all the fluid that's been filtered back to the superior or inferior vena cava to return that fluid to the heart as well. Here are your capillaries. These are the exchange vessels. And again, you can see arteries taking blood away from the heart, mostly oxygenated, and veins bringing blood back to the heart, mostly deoxygenated. All vessels consist of a lumen, that's the central blood containing space surrounded by a wall. And walls of all vessels except the capillaries have these three layers or tunics: the intima, media, and externa. The capillaries just have an endothelium with sparse basal lamina. So here's the tunica intima, the innermost layer. It's an intimate contact with the blood. It's made up of the endothelium and subendothelial layer. The tunica media is the middle layer composed mostly of your smooth muscle and sheets of elastin. And here's where we have your sympathetic nervous system control, causing vasoconstriction or vasodilation, which will decrease or increase the lumen diameter with nervous system stimulation. Then the tunica externa is the outermost layer, also called the tunica adventitia. The vaso vasorum is a system of tiny blood vessels found in larger vessels that function to nourish this outermost external layer. So here's a difference between an artery and a vein. Arteries have a thicker muscular tunica media layer, and veins do not. So veins will often collapse on themselves, whereas arteries maintain their shape. Here's another look, a review of these three layers, and you can see some of the differences between them. You can see the capillaries just have the endothelial layer with a basement membrane, and the veins will have valves in them. So here's a look at the different types of arteries and their relative tissue makeup. The elastic arteries have the elastic tissue as their main makeup. The muscular arteries have the smooth muscle as the biggest, and we'll talk about these arteries and then the different type of veins and what makes up their different walls. So we have three types of arteries: elastic, muscular, and arterioles. Elastic are the thickest walled arteries. This includes your aorta and its major branches. They have elastin fibers found in all three tunics, which will be able to stretch and give way to the pressure that is being provided when heart leaves from the left ventricle. Elastic arteries will act as a pressure reservoir that expands and recoils as blood is ejected from the heart. Muscular arteries will be the smaller version, so elastic arteries will give rise to muscular arteries. These are also called distributing arteries because they deliver blood to the body organs, and most of the named arteries that you learned in anatomy are all the muscular arteries. They will be very active in vasoconstriction because they have the thickest tunica media with a smooth muscle wall. Arterioles are then the smallest of the arteries. Larger arterioles contain all three tunics, but smaller ones will just have a single layer of smooth muscle. They control blood flow into the capillary beds, and they're also called resistance arteries because changing the diameters will change the resistance to the blood flow. And then your arterioles lead to your capillaries. These are microscopic vessels. The diameters are so small that only a single red blood cell can pass through it at a time, and the wall is just a thin tunica intima layer. Capillaries, their main function is to work in the exchange of gases, nutrients, wastes, hormones, and the exchange between blood and interstitial fluid. We have three different types of capillaries. Continuous capillaries are abundant in skin, muscles, lungs, and your central nervous system. This is a look at a continuous capillary. They have associated parasite cells, which will help form the layer of cells. The fenestrated capillaries are found in areas involved in active filtration, absorption, or endocrine hormone secretion. So your kidneys, your intestines. They have these Swiss cheese-like pores called fenestrations, which allow for increased permeability. And this is a look at the fenestrated capillaries with the pores, which things can get absorbed or actively filtered through. Then your sinusoidal capillaries, um, they have fewer tight junctions, larger lumens. They're found only in the liver, bone marrow, spleen, and the adrenal medulla. Blood flow is sluggish. They will have macrophages to help destroy and attack foreign invaders. So these are sinusoid capillaries, very common in the liver, bone marrow, spleen, and the adrenal medulla. Your capillary bed is this interwoven network of capillaries between the arterioles and venules. Microcirculation refers to the flow of blood through the bed, and the terminal arterial branch will be a branch off the arteriole that further branches into other capillaries, and this is where the exchange vessels are. Capillaries will then drain into the postcapillary venule. The flow through the bed is controlled by the diameter of the terminal arteriole and upstream arterioles. Local chemical conditions and arteriolar vasomotor nerve fibers will regulate the amount of blood entering the capillary bed. Arterial and terminal arterial blood will be dilated when blood is needed in the tissue area, or it will be constricted to shunt blood away from the bed when blood is not needed in that area. So here's just a look at the arterioles dilated, so showing how more blood will flow through the capillaries, and when arterioles are constricted, no blood is flowing through the capillaries. A vascular shunt is a channel that directly connects the arteriole with the venule, and this will bypass true capillaries. And a precapillary sphincter is just a cuff of smooth muscle that surrounds each true capillary that branches off the meta-arteriole, and it acts as a valve that will just help to regulate blood flow into that capillary bed. So this is just to show that blood flow through your capillaries is highly regulated and highly controlled depending on where blood is needed, um, where that capillary bed is throughout the body. So this shows the precapillary sphincters controlling the blood flow just through this met arteriole, which will shunt blood through the thoroughfare channel if we're trying to keep blood going through the capillary bed, but not wanting to get to the other capillaries. So veins then carry blood back toward the heart. We'll start with venules because they are uniting to form postcapillary venules. Larger venules will have one or two layers of smooth muscle cells. Veins will be formed when the venules converge. They have all tunic layers but thinner walls with large lumens. The tunica media is extremely thin, and there's a large lumen and thin walls, which make your veins a good storage vessel. They are called capacitance vessels, which mean they are blood reservoirs. So about 65% of our blood supply is in our veins. So again, this is a look at how arteries and veins differ. Veins have much thinner tunic layers and they're able to be collapsed. This is the relative proportion of blood volume throughout your cardiovascular system, and again, showing that about 60 to 65% of your blood is stored in the blood reservoir of your systemic veins and your venules. Veins have much lower blood pressure than your arteries, so adaptations will ensure return of blood to the heart. Large diameter lumens offer little resistance. There's other adaptations. You have valves in your veins that prevent backflow. They're most abundant in the veins of your limbs and your legs to keep blood flowing back up to the heart. And venous sinuses are flattened veins with extremely thin walls that are composed only of endothelium. So, again, another kind of comparison of an artery and a vein with their walls. Another summary of blood vessel anatomy, um, looking at arteries and their walls and veins and their different types of walls. Some homeostatic imbalances. Varicose veins are when you have dilated and painful veins due to an incompetent valve, which is a leaky valve. Factors that could contribute to this are prolonged standing, obesity, pregnancy, blood will pool in the lower limbs and weakens the valves. This affects more than 15% of adults. Elevated venous pressure can cause varicose veins. For example, straining to deliver a baby, having a bowel movement, rate will raise intra-abdominal pressure, resulting in varicosities in the anal veins, and these are called hemorrhoids. Vascular anastomoses are interconnections of blood vessels. Arterial anastomoses provide alternate pathways to ensure continuous blood flow, even if one artery is blocked. And this will be very common in your joints and your abdominal organs, the heart, but there's none in the retina, kidneys, or spleen. Arteriovenous anastomoses will be shunted in capillaries, and a venous anastomose will be so abundant that occluded veins will be rarely blocked. And that's the end of this chapter. I'm going to go ahead and stop this recording and make a new one for chapter or for part B. Thanks for listening, guys.